Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the WDBJ7 Plus Digital News Desk. My name is Leanna Scachetti. Happy to have you guys with us here this morning. We are talking about scams, not just any kind of scams, but COVID-related scams and scams that we have seen arise throughout the pandemic. Now, you'll see I've got this graphic up in front of me. Use hashtag #HeyLeanna in the comment section of this Facebook Live to ask our expert a question about a potential COVID scam you may have encountered, something to watch out for. If you have a question for our expert, use that hashtag #HeyLeanna. I will be watching the comments because you all are a part of this conversation as well. And if you join late, don't worry, this will be recorded. You'll be able to go back and watch from the beginning on our Facebook page. So right now we've got our expert joining us via Zoom today, Julie Wheeler, President and CEO of the Better Business Bureau serving Western Virginia. Julie, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
So I know we take calls into the newsroom all the time from folks wanting to let us know about a scam that they kind of caught in the early stages, or even a scam that they or a loved one fell victim to. So let's, I guess, take a look back at the last almost year. Incredible that it's almost been a year since things started to change for us. What have we seen in the scam world that has arisen since the inception of this pandemic?
Well, the scams started off with the PPE scams when people were not able to get masks or were afraid they couldn't get the right equipment. We saw a lot of fake sites. We saw a lot of people charging exorbitant amount of money for things that shouldn't have been costing what they were charging. Then we moved into, with the first CARES package, the stimulus payments, the stimulus scams, where they were telling people they could get their money quicker, but of course you had to provide your social bank account information or pay money. So we've seen that twice because there's been two stimulus payments. One of the more interesting ones that I think to me are the pet scams. It's what we call the puppy scams. It is the fake sites that are saying that they can get you a puppy that's hard to find otherwise, but they charge you a deposit, and then you realize all their pictures were fake. The site doesn't exist. There are no puppies, and you're out that money. That's been very big throughout this entire pandemic, and even reached a new high over the holidays, I believe. So, it's not just things that are COVID related. But as we've also moved through this, we've seen COVID testing scams where you can get an at-home test. You can pay a fee to get tested. Maybe fake sites, but these are all things that are not through legitimate sources for these things, and again are just taking advantage of people and are taking their money. And now with the vaccine, it's opened up a whole new level of opportunity for scams, for scam artists, because everybody wants a vaccine. It's in short supply, and everybody's trying to figure out how to get to the front of the line.
We are already getting questions on our Facebook page. We're seeing hashtag #HeyLeanna. I got a call yesterday saying my social security number had been used improperly, and they wanted me to confirm my social security number with the question mark. I guess Cynthia's asking if that is a legitimate way for somebody to want to confirm. Can you address that?
No, absolutely not. You're never going to receive a call from Social Security or from a government agency telling you your information has been compromised. When they ask you to confirm it, they're just trying to get the number. If they've called you and they have a true issue, they should already have that number and be able to provide it to you. So don't ever confirm, quote in quotes, because you're actually providing to them any Social Security number, banking information, or credit card information, because it is not legitimate if it's coming in the form of a phone call, out of the blue, and they're asking you for that information.
For those of you just now joining us, use the hashtag #HeyLeanna to ask a question of Julie Wheeler, who is the president of the Better Business Bureau serving Western Virginia. We talked, you mentioned the PPP scams and also the stimulus scams, and now it seems like we're also having to deal with vaccine scams. Here is a quote that we received this week from Dr. Cynthia Morrow, who is the health director in the Roanoke City Health District, and she said, unfortunately, those trying to take advantage of others don't take a break during the COVID-19 pandemic. We're getting reports that people in our area are getting emails from companies stating they will help with vaccine appointments. This is not true. The only messaging regarding vaccines at this time will be coming from the Roanoke City Allegheny Health District, Prep Mod, or VAMS registration services. Please be mindful of the links that you click in regard to the COVID-19 vaccine. And Julie, I guess when she says, the Roanoke City Health District, we could put in place the health district where you live. But what is the BBB seeing when it comes to vaccine-related scams right now?
Well, again, there are a lot of crooks out there and they are looking for any opportunity. And this pandemic has just opened up the world to them. So, because everybody wants information, everybody wants to be able to get what they need. So, you're very vulnerable to clicking on links and providing them, for information you shouldn't provide. The vaccine scams that we're seeing, it may be an email where they ask you to provide your Medicare number, or they ask you to pay money. Those two tell you right there that it is not a legitimate vaccine email. As the director of the health department said, you can go to the Virginia Department of Health or your local health department site and see, most of them should have a link to a survey that you can complete if you're eligible for the vaccine at this point. Any unsolicited email that is asking you for information, you really need to verify before you provide that information. And I always say, don't just click on links. If you think it's legitimate, type it into your search bar and see if that's actually where you're going, and make sure it is a site that is legitimately collecting the information to provide to the health departments.
That is good information. We've got Cynthia and George saying thank you. Carol chimed in here. She said, I got scammed in December. They had convinced me that Health and Human Services had given me a grant of $14,000. I sent them $300, realized I was scammed. So let's talk about the types of scams. Better Business Bureau has compiled some data. So let's talk about the top ways that consumers are losing money and the most common types of scams. So Julie, can you kind of walk us through this graphic here?
Sure. I mean, obviously, the web is the easiest way. It's very cheap to set up a legitimate looking website. So folks can set that up and you think you're actually on the real government site. You only can tell if you actually pay attention up in the browser bar of what site you're on. Social media, because you have friended people that maybe aren't your friends, maybe your friends' pages have been hacked, or their profile's been hacked. So you start getting stuff in your feed that you think is legitimate, or they can pay to run stuff into your feed. And again, they get people to click through because our guard is down a little bit when we're on our social media and we think that it must be legitimate. So again, people click through and they end up on these fake sites, providing their personal information or maybe even paying. It's interesting to me that email is now only the third biggest, because in the past, email's been one of the largest because it was the easiest, cheapest way to reach people. But obviously, we've found different ways to reach them. But again, don't click on links in those unsolicited emails. We've talked a little bit about what we've seen in COVID, the PPE we have under masks, the pets or the puppy scams we've talked about. The employment, obviously, there have been people hired as contract tracers, that kind of thing. So, that always is an opportunity for folks to reach out and say, I've got these jobs. I need to do a background check on you. So give me your social security number and all your background information. Obviously, people were canceling a lot of travel. So it's been a very big deal. The grants and stimulus, the question that we had or the comment about the grant, government grants, you don't pay money up front and they're not going to contact you unsolicited. You need to go to any site on the government that you think may be providing grants and complete an application. It's not going to come out of the blue, and they absolutely are not going to charge you money up front. And as we talked about on the stimulus payments, again, offering to get it for you more quickly, or that you need to provide information in order to be eligible, or you're not going to be able to get your stimulus payment. Again, these are fear tactics. Government agencies typically are not going to notify you or reach out to you by those means, asking for that information via email.
I'm genuinely surprised when we look at that little arc there of the most common types of scams, how significant that pet scam is. I mean, that is really something under masks, how big that pet scam is, even above the grant and stimulus and employment. That is really surprising.
Well, a lot of people were looking for companionship during this time where we were, locked down at home. And trying to find a puppy when a lot of times you can't go visit the breeder or whatever, or they have the ability to use that as an excuse for you to not be able to come meet the puppies. Just opened up the door for the scam artists to step in. Puppy scams have been a big scam for several years. The sites where they offer these very hard to find puppies, and you want these deposits, they'll tell you they'll ship them, and then they come back and say you have to pay extra for the shipping or the special shipping container. They've been big for years, but the pandemic has just given them another opportunity because so many more people were looking for pets and were having a hard time finding them in this period.
If you're just now joining us on Facebook, be sure to use the hashtag #HeyLeanna in the comments to ask Julie a question about a particular scam or a particular offer that you're not sure about and you'd like to get some clarification on. And be sure to also share this Facebook post with folks in your life who you think who could really benefit from this information. So Julie, I want to turn now to this survey that the Better Business Bureau has done on the amount lost, the people who reported actually losing money, and kind of the total scams when we look at the whole scam world. So let's walk through this graphic.
Well, so of all the scams reported to Scam Tracker this year, 7% of them were COVID related. That's a big percentage for something brand new to pop up to that place on the list. 66% of those folks who reported a scam actually lost money. Now, the median amount was $88, which is not a huge amount, but what you have there are others that are on the much larger side that maybe lost $400, $600, $800 for a deposit on a puppy, to maybe somebody that lost $20 for a mask order or something like that. So, it's a much bigger range, but the median amount, was $88 of the losses.
Which, during these times, that's like a grocery trip, right? Like that's a significant amount of money.
Well, absolutely it is. And, any loss we can avoid is something we don't want to see. So, again, being aware and knowing the red flags to look for is super important all the time, but even more so in the times that we're in.
We are going to talk about some of those red flags to keep an eye out for in just a second. June also chiming in on our Facebook page saying, don't answer numbers you don't recognize. Us older people are targeted. We get different calls almost every day. Places are selling our numbers. Should be a law against it. I know I get at least maybe 4 calls a day. Sometimes my phone will tell me scam or spam risk or something like that. But I feel like, and I know Jean Jadhan and I have talked about this, we saw earlier in the year, I would get a text saying, oh, your Amazon package is delayed. And I'm like, surprisingly, I didn't actually have anything that I was awaiting from Amazon. So can we talk a little bit too about maybe some of the phone call? Have you seen an increase in spam phone calls or scam phone calls or text to people?
Absolutely. Over the past several years, we've seen a huge increase in that. And they just picked the topic of the day. Over the holidays, it was package delivery scams. Your package is delayed. You need to confirm information. Your package is lost. You need to give us information. Those types of things were huge during the period. During COVID, obviously, we've seen the emails, we've seen the texts and the phone calls. For any of the type of scams we've already talked about for COVID. But, auto warranty, all the time we are getting these calls. The Social Security number has been compromised. It could be from any government agency. We're getting into tax season, so we'll start getting the calls that this is the IRS. We have a refund for you, but in order to provide it, we need this information. Or even worse, we've determined that you owe taxes. And if you don't provide the information and provide payment, right now, we're going to send the deputy to arrest you. These types of phone calls happen every year. If you have, check with your phone provider, both your mobile or your landline provider, and see what types of services they offer as far as blocking or identifying potential spam calls, either so your phone doesn't ring or that it gives you a warning that it may be so you cannot answer the phone. These tools are becoming more and more prevalent and available by the providers because they know what a nuisance it is for their customers, and it creates issues for them because people are unhappy when they're getting all these calls. With the way phone technology works, with the way voice over IP works, they can change the phone number. They can make it look legitimate, and they can call you from 10 different numbers with the same message a day. So it's really important that you use any blockers that are available to you. But also, don't answer phone numbers that you don't know. If it's legitimate, they'll leave a message and you can call them back. Because again, they do target seniors, but they target everybody now because people always have their phone with them. People tend to answer numbers, particularly if it looks like theirs. The neighborhood scams where it comes up with your area code and the first three digits of your phone number. You're like, why? This must be somebody I know, but they're just not in my contacts. So you pick up the phone. Again, neighborhood spoofing. It's not anybody in your area. And if you answer that call, it's going to be somebody, in another state who's offering you something that is going to end up parting you from your money.
And, June mentioned that they target older people, but you also mentioned that they target anybody. I know, for example, my car lease was up a couple months ago, and I started to get pieces of mail that actually gave me pause. At first, I thought, oh, maybe this is, the financial services company letting me know. And I thought, actually, I think this is a scam. And I mean, it was so well. The mail was so well presented that I wasn't entirely sure at first. We're getting some more comments from folks. Feel free to chime in if you have any questions or comments. Wendy saying, I've received phone calls from the IRS stating I owe taxes. Fortunately, I know the IRS will not call you. Let's talk a little bit about susceptibility because we also have some information from the BBB on that. Let's walk through some of the demographics that BBB has for scam victims. What do we know specifically when it comes to these COVID-19 scams?
Well, based on these statistics, it's fascinating to me because the 35 to 54-year-olds being the most susceptible, we always think that it's our seniors that are the most susceptible. But in this case, it actually is that 35 to 54-year-old group, and females tend to be more susceptible and to be more exposed, to these types of scams. So, you're in that age group and you're female, you want to be extra careful because you're actually more targeted and more likely to listen to or click through or provide the information that's being requested.
A lot of good information here. If you're still kind of just hopping on, if you've got a question for Julie, who is the president of the Better Business Bureau serving Western Virginia, go ahead and type hashtag Hey Leanna in the comments and leave your question or comment. We'd love to hear from you. So we've talked a lot about what we have learned over the course of COVID so far and what we've been seeing. And we try and make sure that this is educational for people to, I think the awareness component is a good part, but let's talk a little bit more about some of the red flags that people should watch out for, particularly when it comes to these COVID scams.
Well, some of the red flags are they're asking you for your Social Security number, your Medicare number, maybe your banking information, or they want payment from you. Nothing related to the vaccine or the testing is going to require payment, and they're not going to ask you to confirm your personal, social or Medicare or insurance number via an email. They do have surveys out there, but again, they're through the health departments. Go through your health department to find those surveys, their website, and click on them. They do have to ask a little bit about your age and health conditions because that is kind of some of the parameters they're using to determine, who gets the vaccines as we're in this period of more people wanting it than when it's available. But they're not asking you for personally identifying information. So being very aware of that is critical. If anybody ever through one of these solicitations asks you for payment in a weird form, like they want gift cards or they want you to get a money pack card or use a wiring service, that is a huge red flag. In a lot of cases, if you receive unsolicited calls and emails, it is a red flag. If they're offering something to get you in the front of the line or something that isn't available, you've read the news and this is something that's just not available, it's not in the area, but they're offering to get it for you for a fee, they're just trying to take advantage of you and the fact that you want to to get a vaccine or you want to get tested, and they think that they can get your money even though they have no service to provide you.
I feel like you and I have talked about this before. Like if it sounds too good to be true, double check.
Absolutely. If even not too good to be true, but if it's something that you've seen on the news, there's not enough vaccine to go around. They're only vaccinating people over 75, they're or first line workers. You're not going to get an email saying I can get you vaccinated, or I'll send it to you in the mail, or I'll send you the test in the mail. That's legitimate. You have to kind of step back. Any questions at all, call us. If you don't want to call us, call your neighbor, call somebody and ask, does this make sense? Have you heard something different? Is this something that could be legitimate? Right now, your best friends are your health department to find out what's legitimate, your local provider, healthcare provider. That's where you can get these health questions answered, and you can find the information about the vaccine and about the testing. And rely on that. Don't rely on something you receive unsolicited, whether it's text, email, or phone call.
Still getting some more comments from people. Susan says, hey, Leanna, years ago, my grandma got a call that she had won 3 gift cards. All they needed was her credit card number. Luckily, I was on the other line and questioned why they needed that if she won it for free. Good, I guess good to come back, if somebody's offering you something, asking questions about it. And if they can't answer those questions, then that I'm sure that is a red flag as well.
It is, and absolutely, if you've won something, it's free. You don't pay anything ever to win. So not fees, not anything. So if there are fees down the road, taxes or something, they take it out of your proceeds, or you pay it once you've received your proceeds. But you don't pay money up front to win. And typically, if you start asking questions, they're going to hang up the phone because they know you're not going to fall victim because you're asking them those tough questions that they can't answer.
That has happened to me too. I'm a journalist. I love to ask questions. So anytime anybody calls, first of all, I typically don't tend to answer the phone. Like you said, if I don't recognize the number,
Exactly.
If it's important, they'll leave a message. But if I do happen to catch somebody, I say, well, what's the deal with this? So I think that's a good point. So if people have more questions, they can call the BBB. I'm going to put that in the comments in our Facebook stream. What's the best number for people to call?
Well, we have an 800 number, 533-5501, or our local Roanoke and surrounding area number is 540-342-3455. We have folks there from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock that are able to answer your call and help you with any questions you may have. In addition, on our website, bbb.org, we have live chat available. So if you don't want to talk to anybody, but you still have questions, you can go on there and type your question. And again, that's during our normal business hours. But if you leave a question, we'll get back to you the next morning. Or if you leave a message on the phone, we'll get back to you the next morning.
I want to make sure I have this right before I hit send on this comment. The 800 number, 800-533-5501.
Yes, ma'am.
And the local number, 540-342-3455.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay, I'm putting that in our comments right now, so y'all can access that if you have any questions and you want to ask the Better Business Bureau if you're not sure of something. Julie, this has been some fantastic information. Any other final thoughts for folks before we wrap up?
Well, think before you provide any personal information or send any money anywhere. And any questions, even if you think it's legitimate, ask somebody else. Ask us. We can help you figure out if it is. Ask your friends or neighbors because you don't want to lose that money. We all work hard for it. We want to make sure we use it in the best way that we can.
Amen to that. Julie Wheeler with the Better Business Bureau, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
As a reminder, if you have any other additional questions for us here at the Digital News Desk, or if there's a story that you'd like us to cover, whether that is COVID scam related or not, we would be happy to hear from you. Our email address is WDBJ7plus@WDBJ7.com. I personally read those emails and would be happy to hear from you and try and help get your questions answered as well. As a reminder, as soon as we finish wrapping up with this live stream, it'll be posted on our Facebook page for you to access, and I'll throw it on our website as well later. Be sure to share it with folks in your life who you think could find this information valuable. And if you have a question for the Better Business Bureau, you can find their phone number, both the 800 number and the local number, in the comments. I just posted it there. So thank you so much for joining us today. We hope this was helpful. Thank you to those of you who joined in the conversation. Lots Lots more to come on the digital news desk today. At noon, we've got an update from Centra Hospital in Lynchburg, and at 2 o'clock, we'll be streaming the governor's update on vaccine distribution in Virginia. So lots more to come. Thank you to Julie. Thank you to you all for joining us today. We'll see you later.